I want to start with an open question to you. What will the SEC do in San Francisco today? What are the actual things they will do out of the San Francisco office that we won't hear about?
Well, they will likely be looking into and continuing to ask questions as to whether or not there was any truth behind what Elon Musk tweeted, whether or not he indeed did secure funding. They'll continue to make inquiries and receive documents and information and go through and see whether or not there was any truth to that and what kind of communications took place beforehand such that this was seen as the appropriate venue to make this announcement.
We have seen at Bloomberg with our global audience a sharp demarcation between FSA and London and the way we do business on these transactions in the modern America. It starts with Reed Hastings at Netflix. Do we have right now our finance, our governance, our Reg FD in a time of Twitter?
I think we do. And I think an important step here is this is fundamentally a disclosure issue. And so looking back, a lot of people have said 5 years ago, buried in some document, that Tesla had indicated Elon Musk may tweet significant information on his Twitter account. Now, as to whether or not that makes the Elon Musk Twitter account a proper channel and a recognized channel for this type of disclosure is a whole nother issue. He also tweets that the company may be bankrupt or go bankrupt. And so, there's jokes about that, whether or not the $420 price is actually a legitimate price, or was that some reference to marijuana? So it's difficult to say that this is actually a recognized channel of distribution for Regulation FD purposes. And then whether or not this is actually dissemination, a public dissemination that's broad and non-exclusionary. Did he block anybody from his Twitter account? There's so many questions that have to be asked whether or not this actually complied with Reg FD. And I think when we look at all of the rigorous facts and circumstances analysis that you have to do to determine whether or not a social media venue is a public dissemination for Regulation FD purposes, it's a very intense analysis, and I think we're unlikely to find the answer that yes, it was.
Teresa, good morning from London. Does the law have to change in regards to social media and specifically to Twitter? We also saw the president actually a couple of times, tweeting on Amazon and other companies sending the stock price lower. So is that also, should it be investigated?
Well, the president is not the CEO of a public company. He's not an officer. He's not a director. And so he's not speaking on behalf of that company. So when you actually are the CEO of a company, when you're an officer and you take other people's money, you have certain obligations. And the Securities and Exchange Commission rules and laws apply to the CEO and here Elon Musk, whereas they don't apply to the president. So it's a different analysis for those purposes.
All right, but should the law change? Back to my initial question: should the law change to have more stringent, a more stringent handle on tweets like we saw from Elon Musk?
Actually, I'm not even sure that the law has to change. I think that maybe there needs to be a little bit more clarity. So when Reed Hastings made this his announcement on Facebook back in 2012, and the SEC issued its report in 2013. There was a lengthy discussion that also relied heavily on the 2008 guidance on websites and whether or not that's actually a recognized distribution channel, which then also relied on the 2000 release as to electronic dissemination of information. And so I think that there needs to be a little bit maybe more clarity and the analysis that needs to be done with each of these.
I mean, Teresa, I get the idea there's supposed to be clarity and there's going to be a lot of boilerplate. There's going to be a lot of legal issues, and the SEC is going to take forever to do this. The shorts got crushed by a tweet. How should regulators respond to that?
I think the SEC is going to come out strong on this, and I think that they are going to address the Regulation FD analysis. So it is fundamentally, this is a disclosure issue, and I don't think that Twitter should be acceptable for most purposes. It's unreasonable to me for investors to have to troll and look through the social media of all of the different officers and directors of companies. I mean, there's enough. It's an impossibility to keep up with all of the different social media out there. It's an impossible way to keep up with disclosure.
That was an FSA moment right there from Ms. Goody.
Teresa, what does it mean going strong? The SEC going strong? Is it fines? Can they actually, can they ban people from having Twitter?
I don't think the SEC can ban people from having Twitter. I think the important thing is to have sanctions when people do this kind of irresponsible and reckless conduct. So Regulation FD, there would be monetary sanctions for that. Now, whether or not what he said was actually true, now we get into the criminal landscape. And so if these were false, misleading, or statements or omitted material facts, then we get into the criminal landscape.
If James Murdoch this morning dials 1-800-GOODY and, gets your law firm and they patch him into you on line 22, what are you going to tell a member of the board of directors of Tesla? What are you going to tell young Murdoch?
I would tell him that I think they need to really get on board with a public disclosure that is in a recognized distribution channel, an 8K, and they need to fully explain the facts and circumstances surrounding this tweet, whether or not it's true, if there is any money that's actually secured, whether or not there has been board approval of this, and in fact the only contingency is shareholder approval, whether or not a tender offer was made or intends to be made. And under the rules 14E8, for example, under the Exchange Act rule, you can't say that you're going to make a tender offer if you're not going to. You have to follow through with it. So I think the company needs to come out and they need to end the chaos and the confusion to this market and let us know what's going on with Tesla. And the company now has a duty to do that. And in addition, when you do disclose something, not only does it have to be true, but you have a duty to update it. And so we need these tweets to be updated to make them accurate.